Welcome back to episode 9 of our 10-part series on Metallica's Black Album. If you've been following along, you know we traced the band from their decision to work with Bob Rock through the creative struggles and personal demons that led to the creation of the Black Album. Today we're diving into what happened next, the explosion of success, the fury of betrayed fans, and the moment Metallica became the biggest metal band on the planet, while simultaneously becoming the most hated by their community. August 12, 1991, the Black Album hit stores. Within days, it's clear something unprecedented is happening. The album debuts at number 1 on the Billboard 200, selling over 650,000 copies in its first week. For context, Master of Puppets took years to go platinum. The Black Album was already there in months. Enter Sandman is in constant rotation on rock radio. MTV can't stop playing the video. Metallica, the band that once represented underground metal's middle finger to the mainstream, is suddenly everywhere. And the metal community, they were furious. The accusations started immediately. Sellouts, posers, traitors to thrash, online forums, which were just becoming a thing in the early 90s, exploded with vitriol. Metal magazines received letters from fans who felt personally betrayed. The band had written Damage Incorporated and Battery, songs that felt like sonic warfare, had now released an album with actual melodies, songs you can sing along to, songs your parents might not hate. To the purists, this was unforgivable. The criticism focused on several key changes. The songs were shorter and more accessible. Gone were the 7-minute thrash epics with multiple tempo changes. The production was polished, almost mainstream rock in its clarity. Bob Rock had sanded down the rough edges that defined Metallica's sound. James Hetfield was actually singing now, not just barking lyrics over down-picked riffs. And perhaps most damning of all, the album was succeeding on pop culture's terms, not metal's. Fans were saying that Metallica had sold their souls. Fans who had discovered Metallica through tape trading and underground shows felt like the band had abandoned them for stadiums and MTV. The band that once sang Kill 'Em All was now on the same channel as Madonna. But here's what makes this backlash fascinating. Metallica hasn't actually abandoned metal. The Black Album is still heavy. Sad but true is crushing through the never shreds. The struggle within has legitimate thrash credentials. What Metallica had done was something more nuanced, more threatening to metal's identity. They had proven that heavy music could be commercially massive without compromising its core power. They had broken the unspoken rule that real metal bands were supposed to stay underground. Meanwhile, as the hate mail poured in, something else was happening. The band was becoming globally enormous. Enter Sandman became a cultural phenomenon, eventually becoming one of the most recognizable rock songs ever written. The Unforgiven gave them their first real power ballad hit. Nothing Else Matters was a song James wrote for his girlfriend, and almost didn't get put on the album, but became a worldwide anthem. Radio stations that would never have touched Master of Puppets were playing Metallica in regular rotation. The touring schedule became insane. Metallica had always been road warriors, but the Black Album tour was something else entirely. They went from theaters to arenas to stadiums. They headlined major festivals. They played in countries that had never seen a major metal band before. The Wherever We May Roam tour, which eventually merged into the Nowhere Else to Roam tour, lasted nearly 3 years. MTV put them in heavy rotation, and suddenly Metallica videos were as ubiquitous as any pop act. The Enter Sandman video, with its surreal nightmare imagery, became iconic. The Unforgiven video told a visual story that connected with audiences far beyond metal. They appeared on MTV Unplugged style shows. They were interviewed on live stream talk shows. Lars Ulrich became a spokesperson for the band, doing media appearances that would have been unthinkable for a thrash metal drummer just a few years earlier. The mainstream media, which had largely ignored metal or treated it as a curiosity, suddenly wanted to understand Metallica. Major publications ran features. The band appeared on magazine covers that typically featured pop stars and actors. They were no longer just a metal band. They were a cultural phenomenon. And with that mainstream acceptance came even more fury from the underground. What's important to understand is that this wasn't just about musical taste. The backlash represented a fundamental tension in metal culture about authenticity, commercialism, and what it meant to be true to the genre. Metal has always defined itself in opposition to mainstream rock. It was heavier, faster, more extreme, and proudly unpopular. Metallica's success threatened that identity. If Metallica could be both heavy and commercially massive, what did that mean for metal's outsider status? The band members responded to the criticism in different ways. James Hetfield, never one for self-doubt when it came to the music, was defiant. They made the album they wanted to make. If people didn't like it, that was their problem. Lars Ulrich engaged more directly with critics, arguing in interviews that evolution was necessary, that staying the same would have been artistic death. Kirk Hammett seemed more hurt by the backlash, genuinely confused why making their best produced album was seen as a betrayal. And Jason Newsted, still the new guy despite years in the band, found himself defending an album he had limited creative input on. But here's the thing about success on this scale: it becomes self-sustaining. While hardcore fans were burning their Metallica shirts, millions of new fans were discovering the band. The Black Album eventually sold over 30 million copies worldwide. It introduced entire generations to heavy music. For many people who came of age in the 90s, Metallica wasn't a thrash band that went mainstream. They were simply the biggest rock band in the world. Tour grosses were staggering. Metallica went from earning a comfortable living to becoming genuinely wealthy. They could afford the best equipment, the most elaborate stage shows, and the kind of production values that most metal bands could only dream of. Each show became an event. The snake pit, the small stage in the middle of the audience, became their trademark. Pyrotechnics, elaborate lighting, massive sound systems. Metallica shows were spectacles. And the more successful they became, the more the accusations of selling out intensified. It became a circular argument. Their success proved they had sold out, and having sold out, of course, they were successful. Never mind that the music on the Black Album, while more accessible than Battery, was still heavier than 95% what was on rock radio. Never mind, they were still playing with intensity and commitment. The narrative had been set. Metallica had betrayed thrash metal for mainstream acceptance. What's often forgotten in discussions on the Black Album backlash is how much it changed the entire landscape of metal. Metallica's success opened doors for other bands. Suddenly, major labels were interested in metal again. Radio programmers were willing to take chances on heavy music. MTV added metal programming. The success created opportunities across the genre, even as purists condemned it. By the end of the Black Album era, Metallica's transformation was complete. They were no longer the scrappy thrash band from the Bay Area. They were stadium-filling rock stars, one of the biggest bands on the planet. With all that complexity that entailed, they had more fans than ever before and more enemies in their original fan base than they could have ever imagined. They had achieved a level of success that most bands never dreamed of, and in doing so, they had fundamentally altered their relationship with the metal community that birthed them. The question that lingered as the tour finally wound down was simple but profound. Where do you go after conquering the world? How do you follow up the most successful metal album ever made? And can a band that's achieved this level of mainstream acceptance ever truly go back to its roots? Those questions would define the next chapter of Metallica's story, which we'll explore in our final episode. But for now, understand this: the Black Album didn't just make Metallica famous. It redrew the boundaries of what was possible in heavy music, for better or worse. It proved that metal could be massive, and it created a rift between commercial success and underground credibility, and the genre is still grappling with today. If you want to see how we got here and where the story goes next, check out the full playlist on the screen now. Episodes 1 through 9 are available, and episode 10, the conclusion of the series, is coming very soon. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the final chapter.